Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I'm truly blessed to witness you all here in this workshop. It's my privilege to be with you all. I welcome all the participants in this workshop about the peace initiatives in Yemen. Before we initiate the event, I would like to give my regards and appreciation to all the people who made this event a reality. This could have not been possible without shares and contribution of you all. In this context, I would like to introduce to you Dr. Corey Willinger, the Director of the Center of Mediation at the University of Pretoria. Please.
Everyone to the seminar jointly hosted by the Center for Mediation in Africa, which is hosted by the Department of Political Sciences at the University of Pretoria and the International Christian University in Japan. I'm Dr. Willinger, and I'm currently the Acting Director at the Center for Mediation in Africa. It's a great pleasure to also have here the former and founding director of the Center, Prof. Laurie Nathan, as one of our speakers. I would like to extend a special welcome to Your Excellencies, the ambassadors who are with us today, our honorable guests from the Department of International Relations and Cooperation, representatives from governments, civil society organizations, and think tanks, and then most importantly of all, our students. It's so important for our students that they experience such events. I'm especially pleased that there are not only postgraduate but also undergraduate students with us here today. These events bring to life the things that we learn about in the classroom. And they remind us that we're not just exploring theories and ideas in books, but that what we're busy with at some level actually has life or death consequences. And nowhere is this more the case than in Yemen, which is a constant reminder of our collective failure to secure basic freedoms and rights or to forge or sustain any kind of lasting peace. The seminar was the initiative of Anas Al-hamati, who is currently completing his master's at the International Christian University in Japan. He contacted me about hosting the seminar at a time when a monthly newsletter that I subscribed to had as its title, "Being a Child in Yemen Has the Stuff of Nightmares." Here are a few extracts from the newsletter that I wanted to share that really stayed with me. On 19 October, UNICEF spokesperson James Elder briefed the press in Geneva after his return from Yemen. He wrote, "The Yemen conflict has just hit another shameful milestone. 10,000 children have been killed or maimed since fighting started in March 2015. That's the equivalent of 4 children every day." In August, UNICEF Executive Director Henrietta Ford told the UN General Assembly, "Being a child in Yemen is the stuff of nightmares," where the title of the newsletter came from. And she said 1 child dies every 10 minutes from preventable causes, including malnutrition and vaccine-preventable diseases. And this is something that I want us to hold as we discuss peace initiatives in Yemen. The newsletter also shared the words of Yemeni lawyer and poet Abdullah al-Barouduni, I hope I'm saying his name correctly, from the poem From Exile to Exile, which I'd like to read before handing over to Anas. I thought it was a very moving poem. "My country is handed over from one tyrant to the next, a worse tyrant, from one prison to another, from one exile to another. It is colonized by the observed invader and the hidden one, handed over by one beast to 2, like an emaciated camel. In the caverns of its death, my country neither dies nor recovers. It digs in the muted graves, looking for its pure origins, for its springtime promise that slept behind its eyes, for the dream that will come, for the phantom that hid. It moves from one overwhelming night to a darker night. My country grieves in its own boundaries and in other people's land, and even on its own soil suffers the alienation of exile." Perhaps we can reflect on these words as we embark on this seminar. And on that note, I'd like to hand over to Anas to welcome our speakers. Thank you.
Me? No, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Hello. I would like to thank you, Dr. Corey, for all your efforts. It's a great pleasure for me to introduce our speakers today who are going to talk about peace initiatives in Yemen from different perspectives. We will start with Dr. Abdul Qadir Al-Junaid. Dr. Abdul Qadir Al-Junaid is a medical doctor. He came from Calgary, Canada to join us today. He had been outspoken figure on Yemen politics for decades. He is the author of Prison Time in Sana'a, the book that revolves around 300 days in a Houthi prison. I would like also to welcome online Brigadier General Turki Al-Maliki is a member of the Department of Plans and Operations at the command of the Royal Saudi Air Force, and he is focus of the Arab Coalition forces to support the legitimacy in Yemen since 2017. He has a bachelor degree in air science from King Faisal Academy Air Academy with distinction. He earned a master's degree in military studies. Mr. Al-Maliki undertook his studies in aviation at the American Naval Air Station, Pensacola, Florida. And also I would like to introduce Mr. Bahabha. Is a former member of parliament. He's a qualified attorney. He was a part of the African National Congress ANC team at the Convention of the Democratic South Africa, and later as a part of the agreement of the final South Africa Constitution. He also visited Yemen twice in order to facilitate the national dialogue before he was evacuated due to a terror attack. I would like also to introduce online Professor Lowry Nathan is joining us online from the USA. Professor Nathan is a director of the Kroc Institution Mediation Program, which serves as an international center of excellence for mediation research, training, policy, and practice. Also, I'd like to introduce Dr. Samir Al-Jilati, online from Saudi Arabia. He is advisor of His Excellency, the General Supervisor of King Salman Humanitarian Aid and Relief Center, member of the Kingdom's delegation in several international conferences and meetings, such as the Human Rights Council in Geneva, the Economic and Social Council in the humanitarian sector, as well as in the several United Nations sessions. He will talk today about the humanitarian situation in Yemen. Also, I would like to introduce Consultant Nada Ad-Dosari, Director of the Saudi Development and Reconciliation Program for the Yemen since 2019. She has more than 15 years of experience in forming, executing strategy. She has participated with the international organization in efforts towards sustainable development in Yemen, implementing HDB Nexus. HDB is a term that links humanitarian development and peace. Finally, I'd like to introduce Ambassador Mohammed Dangour, South African former ambassador to Syria, Libya, and Saudi Arabia. He was a special envoy advisor to the Minister of International Relations Department and South African ambassador extraordinary to the Republic of Syria and Lebanon. He is also advisor at the the Department of International Relations in South Africa. I would like to welcome you all, and we will start with Dr. Abdul Qadir Al-Junaid. Dr. Abdul Qadir, Yemen is a remote country in South Africa. From South Africa, we'd like to know the root causes of the current situation in Yemen, how we can understand the conflict and the outcomes of this conflict. As Dr. Corey spoke before, she said that the humanitarian crisis is one of the worst in the world. How we reach to this result?
Thank you. I'm happy and honored to be talking to such distinguished audience, and I thank Mr. Anas Al-hamati, the researcher, and the University of Pretoria for offering me this opportunity. My job now is to explain to you Yemen. The situation, we are in South Africa. So we'll start by asking a question. Can anyone here in South Africa imagine the return of apartheid? Next to that, can you imagine it coming back with the use of arms and with the support of a foreign enemy country? I mean, that is how all problems started. So we have our own version of supremacists, and we have got them in Yemen, and they made a coup in September 21st, 2014, against a transitional political process which is sponsored by the international community, by the United Nations, and by the Security Council. The Security Council actually, they came to Sana'a in the most unusual step, that they held an official meeting in Sana'a to say they guarantee the continuation of this transitional process and the outcomes of the national dialogue, that it was sponsored and financed by the United Nations. And these people just made a coup. That coup brought back supremacists, our version of your apartheid in South Africa. Now, that coup led to another thing, the arrival of Iran to Yemen. Ignoring the presence of Iran in Yemen will lead to nothing. Without tackling the rule of Iran in Yemen, we are lost and we are doing nothing. The other thing that this coup led to is tragedy, the tragedy of Yemen. Everyone is saying Yemen is passing through the most horrible tragedy and humanitarian crisis on the earth. And it is all because of this coup, because of Houthis, and because of the arrival of Iran, and because of, the recklessness of the United Nations and the United Nations Security Council and the great powers of this earth. That's how I will start to tackle this. Actually, okay, talking just a little bit about this tragedy. On personal level, I am living a tragedy. I was attacked in my own home. I was abducted, handcuffed, blindfolded, and forcibly disappeared for 300 days in the most horrid conditions. This is the book that I wrote after I came out of that jail of Houthi. I told the story of the inmates, the story of me, the story of their regions, and the story of Yemen through that book. My city, Taiz, the city that I was kidnapped from, is running through the longest siege in the history of all wars in the world. And everyone is just watching. And the United Nations is just watching and telling us words, empty words that are worth of nothing in alleviating the suffering of Taiz or of its people. On the level of the country is spiraling down. We are losing generations. Generations are losing their education. There is destruction everywhere. There is displacement everywhere. I am a displaced person. I can't go back to my home. I am a physician. I'm a doctor of medicine. And I have a very beautiful home that I built, and they did lots of charity and public life behind me, and I can't go to go. I'm 72, and I planned that home to be my sanctuary for the last days of my life. And I have to spend this time abroad. Why? Actually, it is not the war in Yemen. Actually, we have 5 wars in Yemen, not one war. The first one is between Yemenis versus Yemenis. And it is Yemenis who are Houthis against what we call the legitimacy or Sharia. The second war is between Yemenis and Iranis who came in to support this coup and those Houthis. The third war is the Saudis came in because they couldn't just bear having these Iranians coming to their southern borders, where they have encircled them already along the northern borders. The Iranians have already controlled Iraq, Syria, and Lebanon, and now are coming to Yemen to finish the job. So this just couldn't stand still. They should have come. I mean, you can't change a habitat and then you say nothing will happen. If you change the habitat of any place, you are asking harm from different places. You can, even if we have trillions of bacteria in our gut. I'm talking as a doctor. If you take one single or add one single organism inside your gut, you will be in trouble. You can't change habitat. You can't mess up with habitats. The other war, the fourth war, is the Iranians came forcibly and attacked the Saudis. It is an Irani-Saudi war. They attacked the jewel of that kingdom, Aramco's Al-Kharis and Al-Baqiq and Al-Khars facilities, oil facilities. That was, some people consider it as the Pearl Harbors of the kingdom. Pearl Harbor of the kingdom, equivalent to the storming of the Japanese on Pearl Harbor. The fifth war, that were 4-4, is a war by proxy. I'm sorry, between the Saudis and the Iranis, but inside Yemen, and the Yemenis who are perishing in that war. I don't like it. Most of the international media, they love to call it a war by proxy between the Saudis and Iranis. I resent. Actually, that's what the foreigners say. What we say, it is our war. We want to have a place on this earth, and we have been denied. Now, I finished the story of the five wars. I will go now. What are the options in front of us? And here I'm just reflecting on what is written in every think tank and all the analysts of the world and all the foreign experts of the world. That's what some of them say, the options they are offering us. Some of them say, okay, you can't stand to these forces. Houthis are far more superior in force, in armed, in firepower over the Yemenis. And the Iranis are stronger than the Saudis who are supporting you. So you can just give in and give up this war and then let them win. Okay. If you want them to win, I can guarantee to you, you are only asking, okay, they might, we might settle down for a while, but it is a matter of few years, and Yemen will flare up in another cycle of violence and another cycle of stability and tragedies. This is one option that we are being offered. They are stronger than you. Why don't you just sit quiet and let what happen happen? We hear that. Some people say, oh, let people live in peace, even under racist tyranny. First, it is a racist tyranny, and it shouldn't stick. Second, it will not stick anyway. I mean, you are asking for trouble for the next people, for people after 5 years or 10 years. If Houthis prevail, they will not stand. Neither we will leave them alone, or anyone will leave them alone. Trouble is coming. The other option, okay, this country, let us be realistic. We hear them. I mean, the think tanks and the analysts, experts on Yemen, they are just keeping bombarding them with lengthy reports about reality and facts on the ground. They say Yemen is now divided into 5 areas, and each area is controlled by warlords, and they have their turfs. So let us divide Yemen into 5 regions according to realities on the ground. But these realities on the ground, actually, they are not Yemeni made. They are made by foreign powers, and they are financed by foreign powers, and they are nurtured by foreign powers. They are not Yemenis. Sorry. Also, this will not bring stability and will we will keep living in tragedies. Now the third option, which is my option, and which was the option of the transitional process, which was internationally sponsored, is to let Yemenis have a social contract and to have the rule of law. This is the only, under one Yemen. Fragmented Yemen is never on the table, should never be on the table. This is the only guarantee that Yemen will be stable and will get prosperity and will be a good asset for the region and for the world. This is the only possible way.
I would like to stop with this point, and we would like to go to the Project Director General Turki Al-Malki, who's joining us online. Yes, Al-Amid Turki Al-Malki.
Okay, Mr. Hamati, speakers, attendees, I'm so glad to be here today. If you can make the mic off, please. Well, thank you first for having me today to talk about the situation in Yemen. And I would like to thank the International Christian University and also the University of Pretoria to make this event and to arrange for the speaker to talk about Yemen. And kindly, I would like to ask somebody is putting the mic is annoying. Say, Dennis.
Yes, I'm with you in Turkey. I think all the mics are closed. Is it still noisy?
يس في احد حاط المايك عشان كذا في الصوت يعني اذا صامت. The seminar host, if you kindly put the mic, please.
I think that if you can hear with us, we're hearing you very well. I think if you would like to comment. I'm not sure about which mic is currently still open. I'm pretty sure that all of them are closed. So, yeah.
The host, please, seminar host. Okay, let me start just to talk about the situation in Yemen. I think it's very important that we talk about the situation in Yemen before 2015 as being briefed by His Excellency the Ambassador. So we know that Yemen was suffering from instability in terms of political and also economy and military situation. Ali Abdullah Saleh, he was with the famous saying, controlling Yemen is like dancing over the snake head. And we know the political introduction between the Yemeni parties, which caused instability and also non-prosperity for Yemen. The economic situation in Yemen was not that good before the campaign. It started in 2015, even controlled by the Houthi in 2014. The terrorist group have taken Yemen before 2014 as a safe haven. So we have seen how the ISIS and also the AQAP have moved to Yemen. They try to find the suitable area to launch their malign and hostile activity in the region. To talk about it also, I would like to mention how the Houthi have started in 2014 moving from Sa'da toward Dammaj, and they have practices hostile act against the civilian and also the tribes in Sa'da, and they start moving toward Amran. They have controlled the brigade and they kill one of the Yemeni National Army generals, Al-Qushaybi, and then they start moving toward Sana'a. They control the capital, and lately after that date they have signed the agreement, the peace partnership with the other parties in Yemen. I think the GCC country have worked since 2011 to stop the civil war in Yemen, having the GCC initiative and resigning the ex-president and President Ali Abdrabbu Mansour Hadi have controlled or take the position as president for Yemen. 2014, the GCC have invited all Yemeni parties after the Houthi have refused to sign the agreement for the comprehensive talk between the Yemenis. They have invited the Yemenis to come to Riyadh and to talk about the issues and to have a political solution in Yemen. Instead of that, they have done and they have practiced heavy exercise on our southern border using heavy weapons they got it from Iran. And we know how Iran, they start supporting the Houthi since 2013. And Jihan was one of the ships was seized with heavy and light weapons came from Iran. That time, the President Abdrabbu Mansour Hadi have asked the kingdom and also the GCC, the Arab League, and also dropped the request to the UN Security Council 24 March 2015 for defending the Yemeni people and also for the collective security. So we have started the campaign, and the reason behind it is to protect the Yemeni people from the Houthi and their hostile act. We know how important is Yemen to the world, and the Houthi have started implementing the same agenda that Iran is doing in Hormuz Strait, and they start doing the same by threatening the freedom of navigation in Bab al-Mandab and also the Red Sea. The objective or the military objective for the decisive storm is to protect the Yemeni people in the cities and in villages, and also to restore the legitimate government which is recognized by the international community, and also to end the coup which started in 21st September 2014. So the war in Yemen did not start in March 2015, but it started when the Houthi have controlled or they made their coup against the Yemeni government. During that time, the coalition have set 5 times ceasefire in Yemen upon the request from the United Nations, and also to give the humanitarian, to elevate the humanitarian suffering to the Yemeni people. However, the Houthi did not respond in positive way for those ceasefire. They have started launching the ballistic missile and also reinforcing their forces in the borderline and also inside Yemen. The objective for the coalition as a military, when we start the operation south of Al-Hudaydah 2018, is to put more pressure on the Houthis so they can come to the table, because we know they have refused to come after the Kuwait talk for 100 days, and also they are not responding to any initiatives coming from the United Nations or from the coalition. 2019 has been brief. After the attack against Saudi Aramco in Gig and Kharis, we have implemented new policy with the Houthi, and our objective is to segregate the Houthi from Iran. We have started talking to the Houthi through the back channel, and we set 5 de-escalation area in Yemen, which is Sa'da, Umran, Sana'a, and Al-Hudaydah, and also Hajjah. And the objective is to talk to the Houthi and try to find the hope for the Yemeni people, and also to reach to a political solution and sustainable solution in Yemen, not just for a short time, but for future-wise. The Houthi did not respond to the de-escalation, and they have started moving toward the Jawf. They controlled Al-Hazm, and then they start moving toward Marib. The operation that the Houthi is conducting to Marib have a lot of concern from the Joint Forces Command. The first thing that we concern about the 2.5 million people in Marib, We know how important is Ma'rib for the Yemeni and also for the Yemeni government. We do think strongly if the Houthi control Ma'rib is non-returning point for the peace in Yemen, and we are doing our best to stop the Houthi from controlling the city and to give the space for the politician people so that we can reach an agreement in Yemen. I will summarize some of the effort that the coalition have taken for the peace in Yemen. We do strongly believe that the political solution is the best solution for the crisis in Yemen. As a country, we are the second line beyond politics. We know politics have failed in 2014, and also during the time that we need to bring the Houthi also with the Yemeni party. We stopped the war, the civil war in 2011 by the GCC initiative, and also in fighting all the Yemeni party in 2014 before the campaign started. The Houthi have refused, and also we have set 5 times ceasefire in Yemen, and negatively, unpredictably been spawned by the Houthis. And also we have sit with the Houthi in which they call it Bahrain Regional Talk, and also Kuwait Talk, and Geneva 1, Geneva 2, and also in Stockholm Agreement. Also the strategy that we have set with the Houthi after 2019, from the 23rd of September 2019, we have implemented the de-escalation strategy. However, the Houthi is continuing their hostile act. And also the final one is the Saudi initiative, which been announced in March 2021. So the articles or the component or the element of the agreement is to open Sana'a International Airport, and also to open the port of Al-Hudaydah, and also to go immediately for a ceasefire and comprehensive ceasefire in whole Yemen. The Houthi have refused the initiative and is still on the table, and we are working with the special envoy, the UN special envoy, and also with the special envoy from the United States, that we need to bring the Houthi, and we are welcoming all the initiative to solve the issue in Yemen. The final point, also we have contributed in elevating the humanitarian situation in Yemen. We launched the YCHO, or what we call it, the Yemeni Comprehensive Humanitarian Operation 2018, donating $500 million from Saudi, $500 million from the United Arab Emirates, and also $250 million from Kuwait, and the other the other $250 million from the other country in the coalition. 2019, we have donated $750 million from Saudi, and also $750 million from the Emiratis. 2020, we have to the humanitarian response plan with $500 million, and lately what's been announced in 2021, donating $430 million from the Saudi government. These are some of the efforts that we have introduced to Yemen. We until now we haven't noticed, or we haven't seen any will from the Houthi to come to the table for a couple of reasons. The first thing, we do think that the Houthi, they are implementing the Iranian agenda. Iran is going for a proxy war. However, the coalition is not going for a proxy war, but we are defending the Yemeni people. And the conflict in Yemen is local conflict between the Yemenis. However, it has its implication toward the regional security and also the international security and stability. The Houthi, they don't have that agenda to control Yemen, or at least to have a political view. This is why they want to prolong the conflict in Yemen. And also, as being mentioned in the beginning by His Excellency, the ambassador, that the Houthi, let me take it back to 1962. So they are doing the same thing. They think the control of Yemen is a divine right, and we are not dealing with a regular opponent to solve the issue in Yemen. We do think that if they are accepting the peace initiative, they have obligation toward the Yemeni people. They don't want to take any obligation again toward the Yemeni people. This is why they want the campaign to last for a long time. And also they are taking the advantage of the black market, making some money from the fuel market, which they are controlling the Al-Hudaydah port, and the lack of the international community pressure on the Houthi. so they can come to the table. If we put more pressure on the Houthi, maybe the Houthi will come to the table. The most important one is putting the accountability on the Iranian regime by supporting the Houthi with advanced component, a major component of TBMs and UAV and fast build. We do think it's the responsibility for the international community to work with the special envoy and to bring the Houthi to the table and to have a sustainable solution. If Yemen came safe and secure, stable, the whole region will be secure, and also the international security will be achieved in this matter.
Hello, Al-Hamid Turki, I'd like to thank you for great explanation with all the numbers. Yes, can you hear me? I would really thank you for all the explanation with the numbers and the dates and all these details. Which means like Houthis are using the peace initiatives to expand on the land. So what is from your view, if he's continuing to do that, do you think we can conclude can reach to the peace in Yemen? Hello, Hamid Turki. Hello. I'm not sure if you can hear me, but just to gain time, I would like to go to. Yes, can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me now? I'm not sure if you can hear me. Hello? 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 Yes, I hear you very well, but I'm not sure if you hear me. Um, yes, I think all the participants they can hear me except you. Would you mind if you just check your connection? Okay, Amit Turki, we would like to thank you for all the details that you're providing us, and I'd like just to gain time to go to the next speaker, and if you may remain with us until the end of the event, just to get to the questions from the audience. I'll go now to Mr. Bhabha. I believe you've been in Yemen twice. You witnessed the national dialogue, and you see all the parties involved in the situation to reach to what we can call a social contract with a new constitution, with a new law in Yemen to build a long-term peace. Do you think from your view, what would happen for the country then that collapsed in a civil war? What was missing in our national dialogue? Was it the mistake part what we are suffering from the war? Was it part of the national dialogue because we failed to reach to social contract?
Thank you, Can you hear me? Thank you, Program Director. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, Assalamu alaikum in Saubona. Uh, I'm going to answer your question emanating from the South African experience and seeing what I think could have been done and what we did correctly and incorrectly. 27 years down the line, what we could have done better, and perhaps certainly the conditions that prevail in Yemen are not the same as was in South Africa, but I'm sure that you could share some of the experiences we had in South Africa. So just to give you a background, the apartheid system was in one way designed to have the ethnic impulses of the 11 different tribes we have in this country supersede the notion of a state. It was designed to allow people to have their ethnic impulses more important than what nationhood is all about. And the South African solution, for all its weaknesses, we had many strengths. And one of the greatest successes, I believe, that we had in the South African solution was to create the notion of a statehood, a nationhood, and enable people to have a patriotism to one nation rather than their ethnic. So we formed and forged a South African identity. And that was facilitated by creating a dialogue that was based on three principles. One was inclusivity. So no matter how did made, they were included in the national dialogue. That enabled us to have a sense of ownership in the solution itself. And that was the second element that contributed to our success. And the third, emanated from the first two, was building a degree of trust. Much of it Doctor has already said in some of his solutions or his proposed solutions. In doing this, the important elements was or were to create the notion of a particularly in the last 10 years. And in retrospect, the thing that's institutions. And evaluates and are being the alternative is and I think we did succeed. There have been and you see in South Africa is an area I think we could have paid more attention to, is a state machinery that is able to implement policy. I don't believe too much attention to that. So around the world in our experiences, we have seen the greatest of agreements on paper, but with shortcomings. One is the absence of strong institutions and the that would protect the interests of the state. In many instances, there's no political management of the military, and the military takes over. Those are the institutions that we talk about. I suspect that my colleague here, I don't want to overlap, so we've divided the labor here, and we had a long discussion of what I should say and what I should not say. But answer you directly. I was in Yemen in 1995. At that stage, there was a major party from the south that did not participate in the dialogue. And if you recall, that posed a major threat to the democratic agreements that came into being. And later it proved to be fatal, because it was then used commentator on Yemen, but that's the first. The second observation I made there was that the institutions of democracy, the ones that were supposed to be independent, were either not strong or manipulated. And it's an observation, it may be an incorrect observation, but I think in future that if there is a solution, that has to be established and focused on. The third, again, if we're honest with each other, apart from the lack of inclusivity, the constitutional arrangements that gave but a constitutional arrangement that is Yemen in its making. So an imposition of some of there, because I have a suspicion Mohammed is beginning to show me big eyes already. So I'm a bit scared that he may be thinking that I'm reading his notes from here. So I'm going to stop here and then we can use that in dialogue, okay, if you don't mind.
I would like to thank you. I would like
Take this one, I think this one works better.
I would like to thank you for your inputs. And I'd like to speak now to Professor Lowry Ethan, who's with Laurie Nathan, sorry, who's joining us online. Professor Lowry, do you hear us? Hello? Professor Lowry, do you hear me? Yes, sure. Professor Lowry, it's nice to see you, Professor Lowry. I will start my questions to you with the point that Mr. Bhabha he's just mentioned it, is about inclusivity. In Yemen, we joined a national dialogue. Can you hear me? Okay. In Yemen, we all the parties, they join a national dialogue. Even those who have not formed a political party. For example, Al-Houthi, he joined the national dialogue and then he turned against it. He joined the national dialogue without forming a political party. He just joined the national dialogue as armed militia. Was it a mistake from your view to join, to put form, not political form, in a national dialogue? Because after that, we reached to a new constitution, we reached to a new outcomes of the national dialogue, and Houthis turned against these outcomes. And now he's fighting to lead to the whole country. So from your view, how we can reach with the armed groups to have them on the table and reach to a peace? Because they're using the peace initiatives to expand in the territories. So I'd like to leave it for you now.
This discussion. I'm very sorry I can't be with you in person. I'm not an expert on Yemen. So I should say that at the outset. My expertise lies in national dialogue and mediation, and I'm very interested in the tension that arises in mediation and national dialogues where some or more of the parties are perceived as villains. You know, we like to view mediation in a kind of romantic fashion, but it's a non-violent cooperative process of bringing parties to agreement. But in reality, as we've seen in Yemen, there is often a serious tension where one or more of the parties is perceived by others as villains. And this was true also in South Africa. It's characteristic of a civil war that the conflict parties view each other as villains and do not want to collaborate with their enemy and don't want to share power with their enemy. There's a pragmatic bottom line, however. You either defeat your opponent, or if military victory is simply pragmatically unattainable, then you have no option but to go into a negotiated settlement with your enemy, and then sharing power with your enemy. And we did that in South Africa, and it is politically, psychologically, and emotionally very painful. I'm interested in mediation processes where there is an overarching mandate, usually from the UN Security Council or the African Union, which excludes one of the parties from a proper negotiation process. And I think this is what happened with the UN Security Council Resolution 2216 of 2015. It was an exclusionary mandate and has had a negative impact on attempts to end the conflict by basically taking a win-lose position, by recognizing the legitimacy of the government of President Hadi, and by calling on the Houthi effectively to surrender. That resolution may have been justified on democratic grounds because the Houthi took force to power through force against an elected government, but that resolution made a mediated solution impossible, because the only possible mediated solution is a power sharing solution. And this is currently the position of many international actors, and it has long been the position of the United Nations mediators, and it was resisted by both sides because of the wording of the UN Security Council Resolution 2016. So the Houthi would have argued at the mediation sessions and stayed away from the mediation for a long time on the grounds that the UN Security Council resolution calls on them effectively to give up. And why would they do that if they think they're in a military strong position? It also calls on Hadi, it accepts the legitimacy of President Hadi, and Hadi has long argued that if the Security Council has recognized his legitimacy, then there is no basis for any negotiated settlement with the Houthi. So let me repeat that I appreciate how difficult this is politically, psychologically, emotionally, as a South African, member of the African National Congress before the unbanning, involved in the negotiations with the minority regime. I understand how difficult that is, to engage in dialogue, negotiations, and some kind of power sharing with your enemy. But if you can't win militarily, then pragmatically you have no alternative. And I would end by saying that although the Houthi did participate in the national dialogue, they were excluded from the GCC initiative. So when the Gulf Cooperation Council was doing the mediation and an elite pact was formed that was to lead to the the resignation of President Saleh, the Houthi were not involved in that. And then when the United Nations took over that mediation, led by Jamal Benmar, leading to the GCC implementation plan, again, the Houthi were not part of that. So I think if there's a lesson to be learned, one of the lessons is about the danger of excluding a significant actor which has the ability to resort to large-scale violence. Let me end there. Thank you.
I would like to thank you, Professor Lowry. I have one more point for you, which is about you talking about the UN when they took over the mediation in Yemen. We have so far 4 envoys to Yemen. And there's no light at the end of the tunnel. We're still stuck. And the UN keep talking about the peace. From your view, how can the UN play more effective role in terms of putting all the people on the table? Hello, Professor Lowry? Professor Lowry?
Yes, I can hear you now. I couldn't hear you earlier.
Okay.
I can hear you now.
My question is, from your view, when you're talking about the UN, they took over the mediation in Yemen. Now we have 4 envoys so far to Yemen, and all of them, they are unable to play any more effective role in Yemen. We still at at the beginning, they're talking about peace, but nothing on the ground. Houthi is still expanding the territory. They have their own agenda. Is it different? Because I see now the U.S. administration through U.S. Department, they put Houthi under sanctions. They block their assets. But he has no bank account. This kind of armed groups, it's not easy to create a cards to force them to sit on the table. Even when they was classified by the Trump administration as a terrorist group, now Biden administration, they removed them from the list. So, which is a card it might be used. How would the UN can play more effective role to mediate with the armed groups?
So there are several really important issues that you're raising here. One is, do the parties believe they can win? If any of the parties believes it can win, it's not going to settle for a draw at the negotiating table. It wants to win. So theory and evidence suggest very strongly that we are most likely to achieve a negotiated settlement when all the parties believe that they're in a stalemate, meaning they can't win militarily. And that then raises the question, how can the international community, the UN and other global actors, what can they do to induce, to encourage a mutually hurting stalemate? And that then raises the question of leverage. In other words, pressure. What pressure do you put on the Houthi? What pressure do you put on Hadi to get them to the table? And as all of you from the region understand so well, we are mistaken if we're only talking about two parties or only talking about Yemeni parties, because as some of the speakers have already set out, we're talking about a regional complex of conflict actors. And so from a mediator's point of view, you have to be working not only with the main belligerent actors that are Yemeni, but also with their allies and patrons, both at the regional and at the global level. And all of them have to have a sense of mutually hurting stalemate. What I want to caution against is the idea that you can't negotiate with terrorists and you can't do a deal with terrorists, because if we held that position as a matter of principle, we wouldn't have had a settlement in South Africa. The apartheid regime viewed the ANC as terrorists, and the ANC viewed the apartheid regime as terrorists. You wouldn't have had a settlement in Northern Ireland. You wouldn't have had a settlement in any civil war. So the dismissal of the process of negotiations on the grounds that your enemy or one of the parties are terrorists, I think is mistaken. And I return to the bottom line. If you think you can win militarily, well, go ahead and try and win militarily. But if you fail to do that, then you have no option but to go to the table. And if you go to the table, you have no option but to have some kind of power-sharing arrangement. And Resolution 2216 does not permit a power-sharing arrangement. I've discussed this with members of the UN mediation team, the current team and the previous team, and all of them are attempting to broker a power-sharing agreement. That doesn't mean they will succeed, but it's the only non-violent way out of this conflict, a negotiated settlement that includes power-sharing.
Okay, thank you, Professor Lowry, for your inputs. If you may remain with us until the end of the workshop, just to look at the questions from the audience. I'd like now to move to Dr. Samar Al-Jitali. Dr. Samar, do you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, yes.
Dr. Samar, as we're talking about the politics and the outcomes of the civil war, it caused one of the worst humanitarian crises in the world. So, which means there's a lot of things to do in Yemen, as there is about 85% of Yemenis that are in need of urgent assistance. Can you tell us about your humanitarian interventions in Yemen?
Okay, well, thank you very much. Thanks to organizers and to speakers and audience. Thank you for the audience for being patient with us today. I have a little presentation, if I can use it, if you allow me.
Okay, I think now
Can
you
you
can
help?
use your own slides.
Sorry?
I think now you can use your own slides. If you try, please.
Okay. Oh, well, I think I have sharing the files. Before the start of the conflict in 7 years, almost 7 years, we know that the humanitarian situation back in 2014 it was really probably the worst humanitarian situation at that time. Unfortunately, you know that at that time that 50 to 60% were in need of humanitarian help. In one way or another. Actually, we could see that there is a lot of trouble in many areas, especially in the health area and food security area in Yemen, even before the start of this conflict. Now, still I have problem sharing my slides with you. I'm not sure.
There.
Sorry. Okay, whatever. So let us talk briefly about what's happening. Here we go. I think the coalition, when we started their work in Yemen, they put many dimensions actually to help the Yemenis actually and the government, the legitimate government. First of all, they have a political aspect, the military aspect, the economical aspect, and then a humanitarian aspect. Actually, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia built two arms to help in the humanitarian and relief work, and also an area of development and construction. And one arm was King Salman Humanitarian and Relief Center, and the other arm was the Saudi Program for Reconstruction and Development. We worked hard in all areas actually. We have like 80 partners inside them right now, UN agencies, international NGOs, local NGOs, about 60 local NGOs who are working with us. We work in all areas, whether it is controlled by Houthi or controlled by the legitimate government. We've almost invested more than 4 billion till now inside Yemen. We support the humanitarian response plan on a yearly basis by around $700 to $1 billion a year. Actually, the total investment in Yemen till now, both in humanitarian development and also supporting the economy, reached almost $18.8 billion. The big question here is, does that improve the humanitarian situation in Yemen? Unfortunately, I would say with continuing the war is the major factor that we don't see an impact or shall we say, good results on the ground. Right now, what we can see the offensive now toward Ma'rib is creating the start of a humanitarian crisis that could really lead to internal displacement. We never seen in Yemen. It will be unprecedented internal displacement. We know that in Ma'rib right now we have 2.5 million Yemenis living in there. The original population was, at the beginning of the conflict, 600,000 to 700,000 Yemenis. IDPs actually added to that number to reach 2.5 million. The attacks on Al-Abidiyya and Al-Jaberiyya actually led to allow people to flee the area, trying to find a secure situation in Yemen, secure places inside Yemen. Unfortunately, what's happening right now is that, let me go through my slides, I'll go through some of the areas of support. This is what I said, the total financial contribution to Yemen till now, it's reached $18.8 billion. We work with the international humanitarian, respecting the international humanitarian law, impartial. We work with all partners, UN agencies, international agencies, and others. This is some of the sectors we are working in the area of health, food security, early recovery, sheltering, non-food items, protection, all actually of the sectors we try to cover inside Yemen. We have inside Saudi Arabia, brother, we call them as visitors inside Saudi Arabia. They receive the basic services actually, and they have permit to work actually. It's estimated that $4 billion usually yearly transferred from our brothers here working in Saudi, transferred to their family in Yemen. So it is an important revenue actually to many families. Also, I have difficulty moving my slides. Okay, whatever, we'll go back to the situation in Marib. Actually, in Marib, there is a lot of incidences happened during the last 2 weeks, which is alarming for everybody, not respecting the humanitarian law nor the international law, attacking one of the hospitals, which is Al-Kara hospitals, killing almost and injuring 36 people, 36 patients actually inside that hospital. This attack, the religious attack, nobody can tolerate this sort of action against civilians. Actually, the other attack was against Al-Arada, governors of Marib with the Scud missiles, almost demolishing 20 houses in the neighborhood. Unfortunately, one attack targeted one of the mosques during the prayer, killing almost 30 people during the prayer. So what we can see now, I'm really not optimistic about the situation in Marib at all. The community, international community, and humanitarian community will stay silent. We will see the biggest ever humanitarian crisis in this century. I think we have to have advocacy, all of us, to protect the civilians inside Marib, and also we have to have a preparation for an emergency plan and humanitarian response plan to be in the level of the worst scenario which could happen, which is I see Houthi entering Marib and causing this displacement. Let us remember here that, just I'll conclude with this, let us remember that Marib, it hosted more than or around 2 million IDPs. It was nourished, developed, everybody invested in that region. We have a lot of projects in that area, us and other UN agencies, and unfortunately it is very painful to see the situation right now in Marib, and also to predict that really emerged city and safe haven might vanish within the next few weeks. Thank you very much.
I would like to thank you for your inputs, Dr. Samuel. And I'd like to go forward to Consultant Nada Al-Dosari, the Director of Saudi Development and Reconciliation Program for Yemen. Consultant Nada, do you hear me? Hello?
Hello?
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I'd like to ask you, from relief efforts to development. People, they also need to be able to afford their life, to gain their incomes, their own incomes. In terms of development, can you give us a brief about your efforts in terms of 3 approaches like development, relief, peace?
Sure, it will be my pleasure. First of all, I would like to thank you for inviting me to this discussion. Can you see the screen now?
Yes, we can see. Can go on.
Okay, perfect. First of all, I would like to continue and give you the full picture and continue what my colleague Dr. Sam was mentioning about the humanitarian. For any country that's under conflict, in order to move it from war to peace, we are all aware that we go through a different process. Whoever thinking that we can take Yemen to sustainable development. Hello?
Yes, we hear you very well. Yes, carry on, please.
Perfect. Okay, so in order to take the Yemen and building the way to the sustainable development, it needs to go through a different phases. It's a humanitarian side, like what Dr. Salman mentioned, stabilization, early recovery, peace building, state building, and then you can reach the development. All of us is aware about the challenges that's in Yemen, but when you sit and analyze it, it's really give you a clear picture of reflecting what all of the speakers have just mentioned for the last 1 hour and a half. Challenges on the ground, it's really holding the developments behind. Yemeni community, in order to achieve the sustainable development goals, they are coming across different challenges such as the community, the youth requirements, the constraint about the humanitarian access, like what Dr. Sami was mentioned, the water scarcity, food security. Yemen is already a fragile country since 2006. And based on HRP report, it indicates that 56% of the Yemeni citizens, they are really facing a food security issue. So, how are we going to overcome these things? The female education, the low rate of job opportunities. Are we going to sit just and think and wait until the peace is going and be activated and leave the people on the ground? We don't think that. So one of the things that we were really brainstorming heavily the last 2 years, ways to improve the current situation in Yemen, and everybody is asking about this. In my briefing now, I'll give you like a case study, how the Saudi development program overcome this part of these challenges. Everybody at 2018, when this program was established, was thinking that it's ridiculous. Are you serious? Are you going to do a development for the political and military situation in Yemen? And in this really bad situation? Are you insane? We didn't hear to them. We continue. What we did a strategic framework, and we put 4 elements. We started with institutional support, which is really crucial for the beneficiaries, supporting the government, the central bank. Then we think about the essential services, the infrastructure and basic services that all of us, we believe it's for granted we have it, like the health and education, while there is a people on the ground, more than 50 million human, they are looking for it as something, as a dream. So let's work on it. And there is another phases, loan and investment, that will be implemented once the peace activated. Regarding your question, Anna, the humanitarian development and peace, this called HDP nexus, it's the triple nexus. It's one of the approaches that's really be productive. It will make a difference in the ground, rather than just go and put that fast and the fast reaction and the fast, let's say, the humanitarian support. Let's link humanitarian to development, but in order to achieve this result, you need a peace. You need a peace on the ground. So what we are doing, you have 3 main factors. You have the programming, which is the approach. You have the funding. You have the policy. We need to ensure that those 3 are working in alignment, and there is a coherence between them. So if we have an early warning for any disaster, if you think about the gender justice, the conflict prevention, all of these will be implemented through an agile funding and adapting funding. Also, in order to do this, You need a policy maker to be aware. You need them to support what we are doing right now about the HDB nexus. So you need the stakeholders to be in partnership with them. You need to program and build the new partnership. You need to navigate and think about the co-creation of the ideas. All of this will come along and will be active if you have a flexible funding. What we did, we took the pioneer and we went on the ground and we actively implement this. By what? Let's localize the sustainable development goals and empower everyone to take the lead in developing their country, the Yemenis themselves. So we help them in understanding how to localize these 6 goals. In order to achieve it, one of the challenges that I have just presented to you is how we're going to implement it. There is a lack of implementers' capacity. So what we did, we established 5 offices on the ground, headed by Saudi engineers, but all of the employees over there are Yemenis. In addition to that, there are 2 offices in Sana'a and Hadid. They are on hold. Once the peace will be announced by all its parties, then we will activate it. What those offices are doing, they are assessing the needs, because all of the data that Yemen have in the international report is not updated. It's actually related to 2014. And based on what His Excellency and everybody, all of the speakers mentioned, the situation have changed. So we are assessing the needs, compare it, do an update for it, then coordinate with the local authorities. All of the work that's done as a development since 2018, it's really empowering the Yemeni themselves. They are taking the lead and we are just supporting them. During the implementation of any project, if we come across a contractor that he needs to build, we need to build his capability. Also we do a capacity building, because they are the ones who operate. It's not a matter of do a project and give it to them. So now what we are doing, you are overcome some of the challenges, you create jobs, you generate income for them, and also you empower them to feel, to lead the country and also to feel the benefit of the peace. For the implementation process, as you can see, we have an implementation process that goes through Riyadh and Yemen. One of the things to overcome the challenges that have displayed earlier is not only the international pledging that Saudi Arabia is doing through this program. We are doing also a direct support to Yemen, to economy of Yemen. That's from 2012 to 2021, it's total 8.2 to the central bank and oil derivatives. In addition to that, you need to build the capacity of the building of the employees regarding the age factor. So we do supporting for the security and efforts. So once the peace will be announced, you don't need, once hopefully the peace will be announced between the parties, that they are just standing and thinking what they will do. So we help them to build a strategy for the post-conflict. In addition to that, we are executing a program for the ministries that's vital, like MOPIC, Finance Ministry. Also, there are in Suqatra and other governments, there are some female and male who need the support, and they are above 40%. So we educate them, we enhance their technical skills. All of this results in implementation since 2018 up to now in 204 projects and programs, because we change the strategy of the development and we keep it on the hand of the people with our governments. So we touch on the 7 essential sectors. That's any human being needs, right? Like the agriculture, okay? Up to date, we implement a team project and initiative, and whenever we choose anything, we choose the projects that result in supporting sustainable food production. Also in the water scarcity was one of the challenges, and the water is very critical for all of us. So we end up implementing 32 projects and initiatives that improve the access to clean and safe waters. Development program. Giving a construction program without a developmental program, you will not maximize the return of your intervention. So 12 programs until now leads to 60 projects to train female. So we create income and you empower the female to run. All of these projects was designed in investing a human capital. And by the way, those projects, when we executed, you involve the Yemeni, either ministries or NGOs or the local Yemeni companies. Education sectors, 41 projects. All what I mentioned now is just from 2018. Imagine, just because we go with a different strategy, with agile strategy. So 41 projects and initiatives in order to provide learning opportunities for both genders. So what we are doing, we are testing the HPB nexus in pilot projects in different sectors. Transportation sector projects.
Consultant Nida,
One of the challenges.
Hello?
I will try to.
Hello?
Yeah.
Sorry for interrupting. I'd like just I know as the bigger crisis is, as the big your projects are, and it can't be just summarized, but we see a lot of numbers that you can make you proud of your great efforts in the country. So I'd like to thank you if you wouldn't mind to remain with us until the end of the event.
I can't hear you. I can't hear you without
Hello? Everything is right? Okay. I think now we can carry on. Mr. Ambassador, I'd like to ask you, you've been in so many Middle Eastern countries. You served in Syria, Libya, Saudi Arabia. You know the differences between South Africa and the Middle Eastern countries. And Yemen, one of the complications of the Middle East, or we can say one of the main complications in the Middle East. How we can learn, what we can learn from South Africa and their transformation to democracy?
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, your excellencies, and let me acknowledge amongst us here today Ambassador Suleiman. At different times, him and I were responsible for Yemen and had visited Yemen in those days long before the conflict. And some of us, myself and Muhammad, involved in the Iraqi situation, myself and Ambassador Suleiman involved in the Libyan situation, and we were also continuously involved in the Palestinian situation. Having said that, my view is clouded by my experience in the Middle East, particularly my experience in Libya. People who have the same language, the same culture, the same religion, and the same school of thought go to war against one another. What is the reason? Somebody described it to me as bad solidarity and good solidarity. I think in the words of Ibn Khaldun, bad asabiya and good asabiya. I was taught that in the Middle East, because of what had emerged there, what were people fighting for? They were fighting, in fact, for the control of resources. And part of the problems in Africa has always been the question of the curse of resources, as President Mbeki had called it. And people fight over those resources continuously. After the uprising, and I don't call it a revolution because a revolution seeks to change a society. It was an uprising. The Al-Kib government was very popular. The first elections, people queued around the corner. The second elections, there were 4 people in the polling station when I walked into it. And the country then descended into civil strife. The role of militias, every city had its own militia to control these resources. You had 2+1 governments, 2 governments and an internationally recognized one. But the role of the UN becomes very interesting. With the first representative of the Security Council, Secretary General Ian Martin, there was success. He lived in Libya. He tried to bring people together, and he didn't move out of Libya and try to control it from outside. He was followed by Tariq Mitri, who had equal success in bringing people together and trying to resolve the problems. but some powers did not want the kind of success that they were bringing. And they replaced him by another resident outside of Libya who lived somewhere else. And that's the kind of UN problems that we need to examine, that people and SSRGs should be resident within the country. And then we went to the question of many tracks. I want to advise against many tracks. Many tracks don't work. Many tracks just create confusion. We are conscious of the Security Council resolutions 2216, 2451, and 2452, and other agreements that should support the UN track, such as the Stockholm Agreement and the Geneva Agreements. I want to talk now about the role of the UN in the South Africa Observer Mission. They were present in all our areas, in every city, in every town. There was part of the UN Observer Mission. They were there present alongside our own National Peace Accord volunteers, and the National Peace Accord was established by South African civil society, by the trade union movements, by the business community, by the faith-based communities, and all of them to bring about peace in South Africa, to create the conditions for negotiations. The UN also established the Exiles Committee, which I was the Secretary General for at one point. And then the UN also looked at the experiences of the liberation movement. The Harare Declaration, which had 4 points, including military operations and its mandate, and the mandate and the modalities for negotiations, which were important. Internally in the country, those of us who were part of the liberation movements went to a conference called the Conference for a Democratic Future. It was the first time that many of us exposed ourselves openly in the apartheid regime as being part of the liberation movements. Both sides recognized that we could not achieve a military victory. And as the saying of President Mandela said once, that it's one ship called South Africa, despite the differences of class, of race, of region, and of language, that the negotiators recognized that all had to be involved. And I want to re-emphasize what Muhammad had said, that nobody should be left out of negotiations. Everyone should be involved. No organization, no matter how small, had to be included. The objective to establish a non-racial, non-sexist democratic state, that the demon of tribalism need to be managed. All the languages and cultures would be promoted. South Africa as a secular state recognizing all faith groupings. The establishment of a leader of a house for traditional leaders. The establishment of a commission for religious affairs. And then we had what we established, the Section 9 institutions, which was the Public Protector, the Human Rights Council, the Auditor General, etc. The arms of the state and parliament and the executive were separate, and the judiciary. The three spheres of the state, national, provincial, and region, were spheres of state and not considered to be top-down. Addressing the question of language in a particular region. One of the challenges that we presently look at is the internal divisions and the contraction that we have to look at, and the battle for a better South Africa, a better Africa, a better world, and a better region. I want to then go on to have we achieved unity in diversity in a nation that was historically divided on race, class, and gender? My answer is yes. We should invite the Yemeni motive forces to a small, collectively constituted conference in South Africa to share the South African experience. We need to do so, A, as civil society, and B, that needs to be facilitated by the state, but not undertaken by the South African state. In support of the UN track, the objective to find solutions there needs to be to look at what the Yemenis want, what they can achieve, how they can become involved, and it is a Yemeni problem that needs Yemeni solutions. But also, I think what is important is to note that regional and international players have a role. Regional and international players have a habit of exacerbating conflict for their own interests. And their own interests are, what can we get out of this? How do we control the resources? And how do we take this forward? I recall being sent to Baghdad by this young man sitting on my left here to talk about reconciliation, forgiveness, and sulh. And one of the things that hit me there was that the UN official sitting there said that forgiveness was a Judeo-Christian concept and not an Islamic concept. That they didn't recognize that the issue of Fath al-Makkah and those kind of issues, they were unaware of the situation in Baghdad. I mean, I had gone into Baghdad, had gone into the green zone, out of the green zone. Some of them had been there for 5 years, had never left the green zone. So they sit in an island, and I think they need to come out of the island to become activists on the ground and to understand how people actually change. If President Mandela had not negotiated from prison, would we have had a South Africa that was transformed today? If the ANC outside and other liberation movements had not negotiated and put down the principles and the conditions for negotiations from outside, would we have achieved the changes that we did? We brought to South Africa the Libyans. We brought them under the radar. We didn't tell the world. We didn't make a big noise out of it. We brought them here, and 3 of us were involved in those negotiations. We brought them here. We can do the same and a similar exercise for the Yemenis. And the Yemenis, I don't think it's intractable if we can actually share the experience and actually get to the point where we recognize that Yemen is for the Yemenis, and this is a Yemeni solution. It's not going to be a US solution. It's not going to be a UN solution. To take the UN, to take them and make them observers in the process, but not active participants in the process. To take all the regions, in that instance, to make them part of the process. For example, in the negotiations in Libya, with the first 2 SGs, we were part of it. We were invited to come to the Big 5 meetings as Africa. When the 3rd one was appointed for their own reasons, he didn't even recognize that Africa existed. I thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador, for your inputs. And before we go to the questions, I would like to refer the new initiatives that by Ambassador Muhammad Dangour to be answered by Dr. Abdul Qadir Junaid. Dr. Abdul Qadir, South Africans, they offer Yemenis a space to negotiate and reach to peace. What's your comment about this? And also, I can give you 10 minutes just for the final inputs before we go to the questions. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm glad to hear what you just said. and I would like to have a very long private conversation with you to discuss this. Okay, because of the time factor, I give up on explaining what I wanted to say about Yemen, to tell you what is Yemen. I'm not an official. I'm not a person of legalese. I am not a bureaucrat, and I am not a diplomat. So when I say something, I'll just say it as it is, not because it is politically correct or what one must say. So before commenting on your question, and watch my lips, there will never be a negotiated peace deal with Houthis and Iran. We will never get to that. They insist that they are winning and they should go on until the end to achieve their dreams or illusions. They can call it what it is. The Houthis believe that they are chosen by the God, and they have a decree by the Prophet that they should rule Yemen. And we are only should be subordinates to them. And they are supported by a regional power which knows what she is doing with 3, 4, 5 things. One, they call it strategic patience. One is asymmetrical war. One is self-reliance. One, just wait. The West and our foes and our opponents have a very short span of attention. And we will just, the Iranians, they believe they will eventually prevail. Any negotiations, any mediation for them, it is only a chance, an opportunity to gain political gains and material gains. And they love mediators, they love UN, they love international envoys, because they refuse to talk to them unless they give them so and so, and they give them so and so. And then, after they expire, they can kick them, as they did in Stockholm. In Stockholm Agreement, they acquired so many precious things that we made us boil in rage. I am against the Stockholm Agreement. I was furious when it was held, and I was furious about how it was handled, and that I was at the end sad because of the gains that they acquired, legitimization. Before that, they were just rebels before the Stockholm Agreement. Then they became a conflict, a partner in a conflict. That is absurd for me and for the majority of Yemenis and for the silent majority of Yemen. Okay, we have a social contract, which is the national dialogue outcomes. We discussed all this inclusive and conclusive blah blah for 10 months, and we love it. We love the national dialogue outcomes, and we love the constitution that we got based on it. You want to reinvent the wheel? Okay, give us another 5-star hotel and let us stay in it for 10 months, and then you will get nothing. Because they feel they are stronger, and because they feel they are winning, and they will just jump like the Black Widow. After they achieve what they want, they will discard everything and will go on for the 5th Arab country. I mean, they have acquired already Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, and now they are finishing Yemen. If you want to give them another Arab country, we are in the road to that. And there is only one way to get around this quagmire. We, the silent majority of Yemen, refuse this, and we are willing to pay the price to save ourselves. But on our own, we can't. We have a coalition. The coalition, like all coalitions, I mean, I can recall what went on between Charles de Gaulle and Eisenhower and Churchill. I can recall what went on between Churchill himself and Eisenhower. I mean, things can happen between allies. Now, I say to our friends in the coalition, unless you win the hearts, the minds, and the respect of the average common person in Yemen, we are all will be doomed into a very bad situation. I'm a physician. I can't fill the gap of, I can't go on saying something without point. I finished, period. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Doctor, for your inputs. And I'd like to open the space for the audience, first for the audience with us, and then for the virtual audience for the questions. So anyone is want to pose any questions, please raise the hand. Ambassador Tariq Al-Ansari, if you may. No, I'll come to you and give you the mic, don't worry. It will help.
Thank you very much. I first would like to thank my brother, the Ambassador of Saudi Arabia and Ambassador of Yemen, for inviting me to this session, and also I'm very honored to be in the University of Pretoria. I had the pleasure of briefly meet the rector, and I look forward to also work with you on bilateral basis. I understand that we are here in this session we are not in our capacities as politicians or diplomats, because it is important to use this forum in order to provide initiatives and provide thoughts and think out of the box in order to help our governments and to help our regional organizations in order to find solutions. And I'm glad after waiting 2 hours to hear Peace Initiative on Yemen, I didn't hear except situation analysis, but thanks to Ambassador Dangur, he came up with a very important initiative, which is consistent with the concept of mediation, consistent with Chapter 6 of the United Nations. And I really salute him for this. And I think South Africa indeed is in a position to play a role, because I believe, I'm a big believer in South-South cooperation. And South Africa is a good player in the South region. So why not, yes, open the door for all the friendly countries to help and reach out to us in our region and try to also assist and put good positive political pressure in order to achieve peace in Yemen, because the lack of mediation is a big problem in our region. If we talk about a failure in Yemen, it's not only the failure of Yemenis or the failure of the countries involved in the Yemeni question, but it's the failure of the international community. Why did the United Nations fail? Because the United Nations represent the whole international community, and we are part of it. The GCC is part of it. The League of Arab States is part of it. The EU is part of it. But why did all these regional arrangements and regional organizations fail? Because the member states are the ones who move these arrangements and these organizations. The United Nations, for example, yes, because some member states who are not from the region, they were, for example, committing mistakes at the beginning of the crisis. And I say this because I was a diplomat in the UN and I saw things. I saw, for example, how the Gulf Cooperation Council and the Arab states were rejecting the use of term the parties to the conflict, because we always wanted to make sure that there is the legitimate government, there are armed groups, but some countries objected that. And these things continued. But now, anyhow, we are now facing this situation. The Gulf Cooperation Council, also we were discussing for 20 years before the conflict if we are going to forge a plan for education and development and health sector in Yemen, but we did not. Also, we are responsible. The League of Arab States, I was telling my colleague, the representative of the League of Arab States office here in Pretoria, that I'm going to criticize you. But again, the League of Arab States consists of the Arab countries, and Arab countries has diplomats and ambassadors and politicians. We didn't do enough, honestly, in the United Nations to make sure also the UN listen to us, because we are from the region, with all the respect to also our colleagues whom we respect, and we participated with them in many meetings. But in our region, we have certain culture and we have certain ways, and they had to listen before forging certain plans and resolutions. Allow me, Dr. Abdul Qadir, to disagree with you, honestly. When you say there is no hope and we were all going to die and the ship is going to sink, no, I think there must be hope, and we must plan for the best. And we even if you disagree with them, you don't agree with them, you support them, not.
We know.
Yeah, the Houthis and the others are Yemenis, and they will always be Yemenis. And instead of opening the door for others to step in negatively, it's better to accommodate them and better to indulge them. I'm sorry, but we are not here to compliment each other and say, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and I agree with everything you said, and let's go home. I think it's good to share ideas and come up with initiatives, and if we didn't disagree in some ideas, we will not come with certain initiatives. I think mediation is important, and the national ownership of the Yemenis is important. We should come up with a regional plan with regional consensus as well, and protect the national interest and national ownership of the Yemenis themselves, and have them own their peace process. I look forward to seeing this initiative officially forged by the government of South Africa. Me, as an envoy to this beautiful country, I will support it, and I will advise my government also to participate, because we all have experience in Yemen, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and all the countries around Yemen. We would all be affected negatively if the war continues, and we will all be in a better place if we achieve stability in that country. Thank you very much. And I want to add one thing. If Nelson Mandela said what you said, Dr. Abdul Qadir, that we are not going to be in peace with the white people in South Africa, for example, and we will never ever have peace with them, we wouldn't see South Africa as we see it today. But thanks to the wisdom of Nelson Mandela, he also followed the concept of forgiveness, mediation, and negotiation was the key, and we saw South Africa as we see it today, the Rainbow Nation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Tariq, for your inputs. Generally, it shows that from your view, there is a failure in the regional mediation and before it going to the international scale. And you welcome the South African initiatives in terms of have all the Yemenis on the table. So, if you would like to comment on that, but our Ambassador Mohammed Dangor.
I was in fact not talking about a new initiative, but rather the UN initiative that exists, that our experience can enrich it. That's all we're saying, is that if you have too many tracks, we confuse people. The UN track is the correct track, but they should also come right in what they're doing and not have interests of the big five there. From our perspective, yes, we're saying one is that, and I'm making an offer on behalf of his organization, a civil society organization that can actually facilitate the talks, that the state can become a co-facilitator and provide the kind of protection that is needed for people to come, but that civil society would actually undertake this kind of facilitation of the sharing of the South African experience with the Yemenis. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. Now we can have questions from a virtual audience. I will leave the floor for you, Dr. Abdulkader, as we don't have any questions from the virtual audience. Just if you want to comment on the, let's say now, the Ambassador.
Okay. How their country should proceed forward. Now, if we have another 5-star hotel and do the same experience again, I can assure you, if Yemenis on their free will, without the use of arms or support of a foreign power, they will never get another document different from this one. So, if you want to reinvent the wheel, okay, we can have another 5-star hotel, and it will be a very good idea with the buffets and all these things. This is number one comment. Number two, you can never persuade a partner to come to peace just based on goodwill. Goodwill is not enough, sorry. What you need is a leverage. Without a leverage, there is no outcome. Number three, if I might interfere about or intrude into the South Africa experience, luckily I am a veteran. I'm 72 years old. I'm not sure if this is politically correct to tell to our friends in South Africa. I lived this live. We followed this. Most of the West, sorry, was with the apartheid regime. They were supporting it. I remember that. No one can tell me otherwise, right? Number two, what made the leverage is the African Americans. They were very tough on this. They boycotted everything, and they paralyzed everything that in America, in the United States. Mrs. Thatcher was very strongly adamant that the apartheid regime should stay. What started the thing was the African Americans, and they were so fierce and furious about this until the Democrats responded, until the whole of America responded, and then the apartheid system, it was a very successful, by the way, very successful country in regarding development and wealth production and achievements in economy and in agriculture, in industry and everything. But they couldn't have gone on, I mean, continued without the international markets and especially the Western markets. So they, as an establishment, said this will not stand and we should have a deal with the 25 million inhabitants of South Africa, the majority. So they had that deal. I'm not diminishing the role of Nelson Mandela. Everyone in the world loves Nelson Mandela. He's an icon. I love him. When I was in jail, I remembered him. Some people actually, sorry for bragging, oh, you would be our Nelson Mandela, right? But no, this is not, we love a Nelson Mandela, but this is not the complete truth, and I might be saying something again which is politically incorrect. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor, for your input, and we are going to have a word from Mr. Wahab.
I don't want to understate the role of the lobby in the United States, but the issue is what incentive is there for the Houthis, as you say, to enter into an agreement? What incentive is there for the neighboring countries? And I'm sure a stable Gulf would be an incentive for every country, regardless of what their personal interests are. And I think our task is to identify those incentives. The second is on a more practical level. As you know, my name is Mohammed. Yes, I am a Muslim, but I'm also South African. And I don't want to understate this. One of my proudest moments, I must tell you, Doctor, was at the opening of the World Cup when I saw a girl in niqab standing up for our national anthem with a South African flag on her niqab. And I don't want to understate it. I may sound romantic to you, but the truth is that young girl that stood next to me, as her identity as a Muslim, was proudly South African. And that is the contribution that a political settlement in which every sector of society has an investment and an interest to see that their country succeeds. And that comes with the political arrangements, the constitutional arrangements that enables every part of Yemen to be part of the solution. So I can understand some of the anxieties about what I'm saying, Doctor. But what I also say that we never give up hope. I just want to end off with one little saying that I picked up in Delhi, where the Nehru University trying to find out about the South Africans, what South Africa could learn. And there was one thing this person told me. He says there's three things you ensure that your country succeeds. One is have independent institutions, have a free press, and never, ever, ever give up hope. Those are the lesson that has stayed with me forever. So I hear you, but what I'm saying is the dialogue starts not from elites, but from people down there who want to succeed and who want to be part of a united Yemen. And I think that's where all our efforts have to go into. Thank you.
Such a great statement as the end of our workshop. I'd like if anyone would like to have a comment. Yes, please.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here today, and I'm thankful for the University of Pretoria for giving us this opportunity to participate. And I'd like to thank the speakers and all the speakers for what they have said, and especially Ambassador Dangoor. But we believe that the Yemeni crisis is very difficult, and also the legitimate government, the coalition led by Saudi Arabia, are trying their best to find a peaceful solution for this conflict. This conflict created by the Houthis and by another another regional country, which is Iran. The Iranian regime is playing a very negative role in this conflict, and they are trying to keep it longer and longer. So we had tried this negotiation, what you are, Ambassador Dangoor, between the Yemenis in Kuwait for 3 months, and also in Stockholm. So creating another track of mediation, it's gonna distract the efforts made by the United States and the Sultanate of Oman and the United Nations, and will give the Houthis the option to select and to move from this track to the other track. So we believe, we appreciate the role of South Africa, and we think that the South African government can play a very important role based on the historical relationship between South Africa and the Iranian. So if they are your friend, So you have to make more pressure to the Iranian to convince them, also to criticize their intervention, not in the Yemen, in all Arab countries. So if I give you an example, South Africa intervened in Mozambique. So, and supporting the Mozambican government because if there is another rebels in Mozambique. We are doing the same. We have the same situation in Yemen. So if these rebels in Mozambique control Mozambique, then I believe all the SADC country will fight this. So if you give these rebels this terrorist group to fight and to control the countries, I think you are supporting the wrong person. So we think the Houthis must engage in these negotiations if they want to find a peaceful solution for Yemen. And I think the South African government can play a role, and not just South Africa, the international community, they have to make more pressures against the Iranian in order to have the Houthi to listen to and to engage in this negotiation and to find a peaceful solution. And also I want to also emphasize that Saudi Arabia will never let the Houthis or any Iranian militia to threaten our citizen and the people live in Saudi Arabia. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador, for your inputs. We still have a few minutes. I will have to Mr. Ambassador Ahmed and also Colonel Turki Al-Malki. He's joining us for a few minutes. So,
Anas, University of Pretoria, just with the Houthis, the Yemeni side or the other side against him give up their hands to a lot of initiatives of the peace. The last one, initiative of Saudi Arabia. Therefore, if you read these small papers to see how many times or attempts gave to the Houthis to come to the table of the peace negotiation. Every time, every attempt, they failed it by them, not by other sides. We welcome the Yemenis, all the Yemenis, they need the peace and the security and the suitability. But the other side, even now, the biggest negotiation for 3 months in Kuwait, just they sign it. They take their decision from Iran or instructions from Iran, not signed, and they drove themselves from the Kuwait. Therefore, please read this and you see how many. And I request now from our brothers of Qatar to try to make their efforts with them and convince them of table under there is the initiative of Gulf countries. Second one, the outcomes of the resolutions of United Nations. This basic, they call it the road for the peace and security and stability for Yemen for future. Don't need temporary solution for them just to make peace for months or 2 years. We need it for future, like what happened in South Africa. They find their solution for temporary solution. They make it, and by white, by When they take his, they call it privilege in the society. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador, for your inputs. And finally, we will have Colonel Turki Al-Malki with us. Can you hear me? Hello?
If you may, just hold for.
Or not to have a civil war started in Yemen. And the achievement of that objective was achieved by handing over the presidency to the President Abu Mansur Hadi. Now, the Yemeni have talked for have reviewed all the solutions together, and they were trying to find a peace for Yemen. The comment from the doctor, Nathan, about the 2216, we don't believe there is an issue with 2216, the UN Security Council resolution. As you know, there are some resolutions from the United Nations. It's been there for almost 70 years. There are some resolutions from since 1949 between the Palestinian and also the Israeli. The issue is the implementing of the 2216. The international community have expressed their will to solve the issue in Yemen by the pillars which establishing the 2216. The Houthi have to withdrawn from the cities and over all the weapons. And the last, or let's talk about 2 points. I think to look to the situation in Yemen, we have really to look to the geopolitical situation in the region. Now, we know that Iran is sponsoring terrorism. They are supporting Hezbollah in Lebanon. They are supporting the militia in Syria. They are supporting the militia in Iraq. And also they are supporting the militia in Yemen, calling Sana'a as the fourth capital being controlled by IRGC. The issue is those militia, they are sharing the experience, they are sharing the existence and the interest. And all these weapons between Hezbollah in Lebanon and also the militia in Syria and Iraq is not just a threat to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia or the GCC. It's threatening the international community. It's making an influence for the interest in the region, especially in the Red Sea and also in Bab al-Mandab. So looking to the geopolitical situation, how also Al-Qaeda, EQEP, and also ISIS in Yemen has the connection with Al-Shabaab in Somalia and has the connection with Al-Qaeda in the Sahel countries, has the connection also with the Al-Qaeda in Al-Maghrib Al-Arabi. So we are looking to international situation and international, a threat to the international community. So the influence of that is coming to Yemen. We cannot say that we are looking for military victory in Yemen. It can take a long time, but the issue, we do, let me put it in this way. We do believe strongly the political solution is a tool in the hand of the politician people. So we are putting more pressure on the Houthi so they can come to the table and give some concessions and reaching the political solution. The last point I would like to express that we, in the new world order, you can't have a country inside a country. For example, we cannot accept Yemen with two countries in that, let's say, as an entity. Hezbollah representing a country inside country in Lebanon. The Houthi, they want to do the same thing, having another country inside the country, and that cannot be accepted from non-state actor, having major component of weapons, advanced TBMs, UAV, cruise missile, and all kind of weapon. So we have to look to the situation from geopolitical situation, and we can take it down all the way the social fabric in Yemen. They can sit together, and as I mentioned in my talk, one of the things, or the most important thing, that putting the accountability on Iran for stopping the weapons to go to the hand of the Houthi will make the Yemeni they come to the table and reach the political solution. Thank you.
Thank you for your I'd like to we have Ambassador Tarek as a final before we close the comments on this debate.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
My request to take the floor the second time. I just wanted to comment on the comment of my brother, the ambassador of Yemen, when he mentioned or he requested the assistance from Qatar to pressure the Houthis in order to come to the negotiation and to come to the table of dialogue. And I want to just remind him that there are many declarations, GCC declarations, mentioning in particular the role of Qatar in mediation, and in particular statements came up from meetings from the United Nations in Geneva, in New York and Brussels, and I was there as an envoy of my country in these meetings, and they mentioned Qatar by name, and GCC statements mentioned Qatar by name and thanked Qatar for its efforts, and Qatar was among the first countries that sent envoys before 2010 to Yemen in particular in order to convince the Houthis to come to the negotiation table. So it's not something new, and we are doing this, and we will continue to do this for your good, and as an also active member in the GCC and in the international community and in the League of Arab States. Your envoys and your foreign minister was in Qatar a few times this year, and statements also came up from meetings between him and between my boss, the Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister. Also thanked Qatar for its role, but again, it takes two to tango, and it takes a teamwork in order to achieve a big job. And nothing said that if South Africa or other countries, in my humble understanding as a UN diplomat, if they offered to help when it comes to mediation, nothing will prevent South Africa from consulting with Yemen, from consulting with Saudi Arabia, from having the consent of the concerned parties, because no mediation process can succeed without the consent of the parties to the conflict. And this goes without saying. I assure you that it will happen. But we are here to make a use of our time, and you chose South Africa to be the venue for this discussion. So you have to expect that South Africa will say we want to do something about it. Thank you.
As a final one, we will have Mr. Ambassador with us just for a couple minutes.
Thank you very much, His Excellency Tarek. No, just because I know you from 15 years in New York until now. Don't worry. But you see, when I make comment, I don't ignore all your offers for your country and your assistance. This is one. Second thing, because you see, we try with them and request again, you can make another attempt and another efforts too. But I am sure 100% they don't come. Thank you very much.
Firstly, I'd like to thank everyone for giving us the opportunity to listen to this very engaging topic. I just want to make one point, because we as South Africans offer to share our experiences, and I think all the speakers have spoken about the South African experience. But I think one of the points that we need to make very clear, which I think may not have come out evidently clear, was the fact that mediation is just a process. Muhammad Baba, Muhammad Dango, Professor Nathan spoke about a negotiated settlement, and they will tell you that what we had in South Africa was a transitional arrangement that culminated in a constitution only in 1996. So the notion to think that we will be able to find a solution immediately through mediation, I think is, well, it won't happen. So you create an enabling environment to reach that consensus by a process that we would always say as Africans, a Yemeni solution to a Yemeni problem and driven by the Yemeni people. Not by South Africa, not by Saudi Arabia, not by Qatar, not even by the Iranians as we would like to think, but by the Yemeni people. Thank you.
Thank you so much. My name is Ahmad Bakal, and as His Excellency Ambassador Tariq mentioned me, I represent the League of Arab States as in my capacity as a Charter Affairs, not the ambassador. And I'm so happy to participate and be here today, listen all the wisdoms and insights of the expertise and ambassadors here. Yeah, very happy to be here. I took the follow, or I asked for the intervention when His Excellency Ambassador Tariq mentioned me, and I was afraid that some scholars and experts here will think that there is a position of Arab League towards the Yemen crisis, and they would like to hear from me. But the word that I wanted to say is that the Arab League position towards Yemen is the common Arab members of the organization position. I don't know if I said it nicely or not. The position of all Arabs through the organization of Arab League. Remember, we are a regional organization. Members are the decision makers of the council decides, and a secretariat, we are just like to implement it. That so the common position is the position of the organization. That's one thing. The other thing is I am originally from just opposite of Yemen, very like neighbor of Yemen. I'm from Somalia, and when we are talking about situation like this, the experience of my country like comes into my mind. So what I would like to suggest and remind you all is that sometimes it's quite difficult that people from the same place have the same religion, have the same language, and also look like each other, all of them, still cannot agree on their interests. It's a difficult to you to understand. But what I can say is that it happens, and it happens because of the foreign intervention. I'm not mentioning any country. We all know what Iran is doing in the region, but the foreign intervention sometimes can talk to your brother differently, even your brother. So what I will suggest here today is that United Nations has different chapters that assist like chaoses or crises like this. So chapter 8, I think, provides the constitutional basis for the involvement of the regional organizations to the crisis. So I think a hybrid peacekeeping mission that's involved, like the regional entities like GCC, Arab League, with the United Nations, of course, could be a solution in my point of view. And the reason is that like there must be force that stops the fire, I think, if they don't agree. That's what I will say. Thank you.
I would like to thank you all for your inputs. This event was a part of my field research to obtain master's degree in peace studies, and I feel like I'm going to pass with distinction with all this great inputs. So thank you all for your come, and we can have some refreshments by the dining room. Thank you so much.